The heavens opened. The rain fell. The sound of thunder rumbled around. And this season tightened right up. Adelaide's Roo provided light when before there had been gloom.
Bends it back. He has kicked a miracle goal.
While Pagan's Roos rediscovered that winning feeling.
Kicks it goalwards. Is this going to roll through?
But by round's end, only one remains undefeated.
Lucas is going to give it across and Lord kicks a goal.
Once so accustomed to life at the top, it's been 8 long years since the brown and gold colours soared so high.
He's got it.
And judging by the looks on these faces, they're enjoying it.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on Footy Feedback as we wrap up what has been as soggy a round of football as most of us can remember after we've towered ourselves down and we were left with Hawthorn, the only undefeated outfit, and Freo, the only one yet to break their duck in what is shaping as an intriguing and tight 2001 season. Joining us tonight will be Danny Frawley and David King, and we've got a mountain of other things to discuss. Joining me, as usual, our panel, and first of all, Stan Ellis to you.
Hi, Tim.
Welcome. You saw Adelaide take on Carlton, win by 9 points at Optus Oval on Saturday. Is that the type of win that you can perhaps build a season on?
I genuinely believe so, Tim. I felt actually going to this game, I marvel at the fact that there's a side who's just not performing well, and yet there are 13 players who've played in premiership sides there. 2 have come from North, but 13. I looked at it and analysed it. I thought there was one thing missing in their game, not skill, not talent, not ability, but passion. And I think with Mark Rasciuto led them the way, showed them the way, and I think at the end of it they discovered the passion. I think the flames ignited, Tim.
More about that shortly. Patrick Smith, welcome to you.
Tim.
How are we travelling after 4 rounds of AFL football?
Well, compared to last year, which was a dreadful year for AFL footy, I think with Colonial Stadium and all those things, after 4 rounds we're up, crowds are up by about 5%, and we got 270,000 to the round on the weekend, and that included all of the nearly the washout on Sunday. So I think footy's bounced back pretty well.
Ron Connolly, welcome to you.
Hello, Tim.
Talk about travelling. You had an interesting trip back from Geelong last night.
Well, I wish I'd been travelling on an ark instead of a car, because I left Cardinia Park at 7. I was still in Little River at about 9:30. Thanks for the diversion too, boys. And home finally about 10:30. So I'm on danger money this week. I suffered for my job.
But you enjoyed the game nevertheless.
Oh, look, to be honest, I mean, no game in those conditions is great, but just as a test of the Kangaroos' resolve, I think it was great from that point of view, and pretty gritty effort by them. I think they deserve a bit of credit for it.
More about that with David King a little bit later, but before we go any further, Steve Silvani obviously missing from the panel tonight. We wish Steve all the best. He was let out of hospital this morning, has a groin injury and will miss about 6 weeks. But Steve, from all of us here at Footy Feedback, all the best to you. And time now to take a look at the winners from round 4. Hawthorn by 39 points, the only undefeated side left in the competition, as we mentioned before. The Kangaroos with their first win by 20. Port Adelaide convincing winners over St Kilda on Saturday night by 64. The West Coast in the local derby by 24. The Western Bulldogs, probably the most inconsistent side at this stage of the season, by 53 over the disappointing Lions. Adelaide by 9. A great victory, that one at Optus Oval over Carlton. Essendon bounced back by 47 points over the Sydney Swans, and Richmond by 15.
And the ladder, Tim, we can see, well, the Hawks, first time for 8 years, I think, have been sitting on the top of the ladder. Got Freo down the bottom, but have a look at the side in 4th posse. Port Adelaide, to me, they're the side that's shaping as the one who's really going to stir the pot.
I reckon that the competition's travelling all right, isn't it, when you've got one of the power sides of the last decade in 15th spot and in 16th spot, winless, but really 4 pretty respectable losses, Freo. So, there's not that big a gap from top to bottom.
And the team that beats Essendon can't get into the top 8.
That's right. No doubt the percentage will play a big part in the shaping of this year's final 8 too. And just looking at the key injuries, well, we mentioned Steve Silvani with a groin injury, out for 6 weeks. Camporelli also at Carlton, so 2 key players to their side out. Paul Kelly with a hamstring for another 2 weeks. Barry Wharf, 2 serious injuries there to Sydney Swans, so that loss against Essendon came at a severe cost on Friday night.
The injuries are really starting to stack up for them too. Remember, Lewis is out for a while. I think one of the kids, Ben Fixter, out for a while. Ryan Fitzgerald out for a year.
Kelly has re-injured the hamstring.
Well, I think, by my count, that's the 3rd time he's strained it since the first time. So you've really got to start worrying about his ability to play.
And at the tribunal too, a number of players up this weekend. News from the tribunal is that Brett Kirk has been cleared for striking Blake Carousel. Jared Malloy has been found not guilty for charging Darren Gasper, and the only other two players to front were Matthew Nix, who was fined $1,200 for wrestling with Damien Peveril, who was playing in his first game. So that was an expensive first outing for a kid who's just come off the rookie list.
I was going to say, could be the first player to be fined for wrestling in his debut AFL game. We'll get Cole Hutchison to get onto that.
I tell you what, on his performance, he should have got a bonus. I reckon he should get a $600 bonus because it was a magnificent first up the other night. I know we'll talk about his effort on Wayne Swass later, but it was a fantastic effort.
Well, the Malloy incident was probably a contentious type of a report. Let's just take a look at it. He leaves the ground, and I suppose there's a fair bit of remonstrating there by the Richmond players. But, Patrick, when you view it in slow-mo, it doesn't look nearly as sinister, does it?
No, well, I think it's the most interesting charge that's gone up this year because the player has the ball. And I think once the player has the ball, then he can expect contact. Now, we've got to define what sort of contact it was. And did he have an option, having begun to run full speed, did he have an option?
I think historically they've taken a pretty dim view of blokes leaving the ground, haven't they? I mean, if you can keep your feet on the ground, I think you're likely to get off more than if you actually leave the ground. But then again, it must be a lot harder to put any decent sort of force into a hip and shoulder unless you leave the ground, surely.
I think that we weren't there for his defence, but I'm sure his defence would have been, well, what did you expect him to do given that he was travelling at full speed?
That's great news for Collingwood, though, isn't it? They take on Essendon on
for
Wednesday. And for the crowd too, but I reckon there's one player that Mick Malthouse has recruited over the summer that he would love to have playing against Essendon on Wednesday would be Jared Malloy.
It doesn't take long to become a cult figure at Collingwood, does it? But he does have that sort of something special about him. I mean, he just kicks some freakish goals, and he's got a real zest about him too. And I think, you know, Collingwood have needed a bit of that.
As we mentioned, Kirk was also cleared tonight for a clash with Blake Carousel on Friday night at the SCG, and perhaps we thought that he may have been a little bit luckier.
Yeah, cleared of the striking charge, but found guilty of some very stupid sideburns, unfortunately. Have a look at him, will you?
Well, who do you reckon he's copied? In all seriousness, Throne, who do you reckon he's copied with us?
Chris Grant lost a brown leg for that.
Yeah, I think Patrick's got a very good point there.
Well, I think Chris Grant was looking at the sideburns. I think he was saying, I lost a brown leg for an incident that was no different to that.
That to me actually didn't, I don't know if we can see it again, but to me that looked reasonably similar to the Stephen King, David Sirakowski incident, where, I mean, it is possible sometimes to, I think you can argue a case at least there that the ball's in his sights.
You'd have to say, given that King was let off a couple of weeks ago against Sirakowski, that was very similar, that incident.
Well, they didn't even pay a free kick in the King Sirakowski.
But I think that what we're highlighting again, how stiff Chris Grant was. I mean, I think that there's a fair case that you get off that. I think there's a case that King gets off that. But why didn't Chris Grant?
And the other thing about the worst thing about the Chris Grant thing is that the umpires said it was okay.
I think the other thing we're highlighting is the fact that these aren't clear cut, are they? There's still that very grey area in this part of the game.
But what is the charging rule now? Does anybody understand the charging rule?
The clubs don't understand the charging rule.
Nathan Buckley,
the players don't understand the charging rule.
Well, I don't think the umpires do.
Do you, as a football commentator?
No, not really. I understand the spirit of it. I find it very hard to apply the spirit. And I think that's the difficulty, because the umpires don't know. That's about the third one the umpires have put up and lost.
Well, surely that's evidence enough that there are that many different forms of charging or charges or physical contact. You can't just pin them all down under a comfortable little blanket description. You've got to treat each case on its merits, surely.
Well, no physical contact yet between David Smorgon and Clinton Casey, presidents of the Western Bulldogs and also the Richmond Football Club, but still, obviously, Patrick, a lot of bad blood between those two clubs.
Yeah, there is, Tim, but I don't believe it's gone to court just yet, but I think the resolution is at hand. I think that the AFL has to intervene here, has to get the two parties together, and
he looks under pressure, doesn't he? This is after the game on Friday night.
I think he really wishes he hadn't made those comments, but I do think that I think the AFL will try and get them together so it doesn't go to court. They don't want two clubs in court.
Don't you find something ironic in the fact that while the two presidents of the clubs have been slapping each other over the face with writs and letters of demand, the players of the two clubs were like mingling amiably the next night after that supposed war between them on the field?
But that's often the case.
But I reckon that says a bit. I reckon if the players sort of have a reasonable perspective on it. Maybe the presidents ought to have too.
No. There's a bigger issue there. It's a bigger issue than how the players. The issue,
What is it?
The issue is the name of the Western Bulldogs Football Club, and I think they're entitled to say we want an apology, and I think they're entitled to be determined to get one. I hope it doesn't have to go to court to get it, but I think that they ought to consider that if they can't get one.
Well, the other spat that's still simmering is obviously between Joseph Goodnick, the president of the Melbourne Football Club, and Wayne Jackson, the president of the AFL, or the CEO of the AFL.
Yeah,
is that further down the track towards a resolution?
Joseph's got until tomorrow to submit his defence.
To take it out of the bin, you mean, the letter of complaint?
Well, it's in the toilet, isn't it?
Oh, toilet, sorry.
No, yeah, that's where he would have wanted to put it had it been from the letter come from Wayne Jackson. It came from Andrew Demetrio.
Yes.
He's got till Tuesday to lodge, or tomorrow to lodge his defence.
Is that fair, Dinka?
Yes.
Like, so he'd rip up the one from Wayne Jackson, but not the one from Andrew Demetrio?
That's what he said. I don't think Joseph Goodnick's got a leg to stand on. I think he knew, if he didn't know the rules, he had to know the rules as a president of a football club, and he comprehensively breached the racial vilification rules and should be fined $20,000.
Was it then a deliberate act of Wayne Jackson's to go on radio to further infuriate and inflame Goodnick on the Wednesday morning?
I don't know, Tim. I think that the AFL sits there and cops a lot from presidents, and I think there just comes times where they say, well, look, enough's enough. I'll have another whack back at you, because I really think you're out of line.
It was a pretty provocative gesture to suggest that he didn't have the support of his board or his administration. But, I mean, I agree with you that what Goodnick did in the first place probably means, you know, he probably deserved to cop it a bit. I mean, like, I couldn't get over that, frankly. I mean, if he is such a strong supporter of the, you know, the reconciliation process we have in the whole racism issue, how could he then flout one of the most, you know, fundamental keys to that reconciliation process in breaching the confidentiality?
Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Well, there was some other noise, of course, made on the weekend, but it was genuine noise. It was weather. At Optus Oval, I was there on Saturday. It was really quite amazing, the thunder and lightning. And what we'd like to do now, let's have we'll keep quiet. Let's have a look at some vision, and also let's listen to what happened.
Wayne Britton's stomach rumbling?
Big Jacks.
It might be.
The thing that you can't see there, of course, in being there, was the actual lightning, which was really enormous how it lit the place up, and you just knew that the lightning was flashing everywhere, and then all of a sudden this enormous thunder was just coming over. I mean, it was really quite frightening. That we were on air, and we were told shut down the computers, and even we had one of our boys down on the boundary line was told, tell him to turn the phone off and get off the ground.
I think all the jewellery in the Carlton corporate boxes would have made an excellent conductor, Sam.
You know the point here is now somebody has to be in a place to call that game off, and the AFL rules say it's the umpires. Do we honestly expect 3 umpires are going to call off a nationally televised game of AFL football? I don't think they are.
Well, I don't think they're in the... You know, it's a very difficult call, isn't it? In fact, I mean, there was probably more of a case for calling off the game in the first round of last year when Brisbane played Carlton at that same venue and it was 38 degrees or whatever. I mean...
Well, we do know they're in danger because only few miles down the road, 6 soccer players were struck by lightning. Well, not struck by lightning, but lightning struck the ground and they were affected by it. So I just honestly don't think that 3 AFL umpires are going to have the gumption to call off an AFL. I think there has to be an AFL official there.
It's probably never even been discussed.
It has.
But this is a genuine Players Association one too. I mean, this is where they need to make a stand.
It's a workplace issue.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
But ironically, about 3 or 4 kilometres across town, there's a game being played where the conditions weren't a factor at all.
Well, I was at that one. Actually, it did rain a little bit at Colonial Stadium, apparently. I was talking to a few spectators and the roof started leaking a bit, so it might be one to look at, Colonial management. But it was a very surreal experience, I have to say. You could hear the rain teeming on the roof. You could just see through the second deck of the grandstand just how black it was outside. And but just the mere fact that you've got 2 games played 5 kilometres apart in the same city in completely contrasting conditions, I dare say that's probably the first time that's ever happened in footy.
I'll tell you what, it's rained at Optus and not rained at the MCG on other occasions.
Do you reckon?
Has, definitely.
That's
the nature of weather.
Can you name it?
You nearly stopped
They're pretty close to it. Well, they're pretty close to each other.
Did you find it ironic yesterday that the game would be played in such deplorable conditions at Shell Stadium, and Geelong had spoken out about the fact that they didn't want to play further games at Colonial. At Colonial Stadium, we've had a rugby game being played in perfect conditions again.
And they probably would have got more. I mean, they only got 14,000 at their game yesterday, which actually, like to anyone who was there, you'd think 14,000 was a pretty good crowd, because it was just... The arc was... I could see it drifting. The end of the world was coming upon us.
One of the greatest things that may happen for Colonial Stadium may happen this year if it's a very wet football season, because you can actually see people lining up to go to football, to watch a decent game of football in dry conditions.
And I'll tell you something else. I was there today, and they actually started to relay the grass.
Well, they have to do that.
They were ripping it up
I mean,
today.
I think they got the last game out of that surface.
I have to say, it's time to pull my head out of the sand a little bit. While I still have reservations about the equality issue, as far as aesthetics go, I'm a convert.
Well, the Tigers have pulled their head out of the sand too. They're 3-1 off to a very impressive start. Victors over Collingwood by 15 points on Friday night. And after the break, we'll catch up with their coach, Danny Frawley. Welcome back to Footy Feedback. As I mentioned before the break, the Richmond Tigers are off to an impressive start. They're 3-1. Impressive scalps too. The Lions, Collingwood and also Melbourne. And joining us now is their coach, Danny Frawley. Danny, welcome to you.
Good evening, boys.
A couple of tense moments again in the coach's box on Friday night, wasn't there?
Yeah, no, I thought we controlled the game for most of the night, and then Collingwood, we expected them to come out at some stage and get a runner. Like the week before, we were mindful of the fact that they'd kicked 10 goals in that third quarter, so they can really get a run on. So I suppose to have that lead and then to lose it within the space of about 12 minutes was pretty disappointing. But then I thought our boys did show a lot of character kicking the last 2 goals.
What happened there, do you think? I mean, was it more... And a similar thing happened the week before against Brisbane too. I mean, do your guys have a tendency to just relax a bit mentally, do you think?
Not really. I think Josh Fraser really did turn it on in the centre.
And Boss the week before.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think that Brendan Gale was getting triple teamed through the midfield in the centre bounces, and Brad, we were mindful of the fact that he was coming back through it with an ankle, and we knew that he was going to probably spend most of the time up in the forward line. And young Ray Hall did a really courageous thing just before half-time, copped a corked hip, and that left us a little bit vulnerable in the ruck, and of course Josh really did get them going in the midfield and give them first use of the ball. So we then had to use Brad because it was sort of a death or sort of win-lose situation, and put him in there, and he quelled Josh, and we were able to get over the line.
I want to speak about your skipper. Obviously not an easy decision to make. I mean, copped a fair bit of flack. I mean, about Matthew Knights having to step down. But by gee, he's been good for you. I mean, he had to come through that controversy and those situations, but he really has performed well. Can I just ask you, why did you select him? What were the qualities of Wayne Campbell that made you go with him?
He's very forthright. He doesn't pull any punches. He's a born leader. And listen, Matthew Knight's a terrific leader. And I think Wayne was just ready to go. And I think his performances over the first 4 weeks in the NC Cup have proved that. And he's just a guy that is a real professional, and he just wants to see the club being, playing the finals and hopefully captain the final side.
Did you expect Matthew Knights to be as upset by the decision as he was?
Oh no, I think that. Why wouldn't he be upset?
You'd be disappointed if he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, it was common. I'm not having a go at him, but I think it's fair to say that there was more obvious displeasure shown by him than, say, other captains who've relinquished the post.
I think the club should be commended to not sweep anything under the carpet. I think that too many times you see people resigning where it might have been a little bit different.
They were removed.
Yeah. So, it wasn't an easy decision. It was probably the hardest decision I've made in my short time as coach.
Did you speak to Wayne after the Liberatore incident and the way perhaps he reacted to it? In that it seemed to be undisciplined, 2 free kicks were given away, the team seemed to lose focus.
Oh, listen, I think we've all learned a lot from that, Patrick. I really do. I think that it's really made us a lot more unified, and there's no doubt our aggression wasn't at the ball. And listen, I'll be the first to put my hand up too that no one was prepared for what happened that day, and I've learned a lot myself, and I think Wayne has too, and our team. So we've then gone back to the drawing board and really had a look at that situation. And listen, we hope to play finals at some stage, and I'm sure a finals game could be like that, so I think we're going to learn a lot from that.
Danny, can you put it behind you totally while we still are talking about the potential legal action that's going to be taken by the Western Bulldogs against Richmond?
Well, listen, Tim, you know, as coach, all I can do is coach against the West Coast this week, and I really can't comment on it. I'm sure that both clubs are trying to do the right thing by their respective clubs, and all I can do is worry about Peter Matera running out the back half this week and who's going to mind Michael Gardner. And I think our players have been really focused, and I think that's probably been something at the Richmond Football Club where maybe those things tend to separate the club a little bit over past years, but I think that the club is being unified, and more importantly that the football department are making sure that we're there to do one thing, and that's win games of football.
Well, you can answer this one then. If you, in a purely football sense, given that you have learned something out of it, if the same set of circumstances were to repeat themselves this week, how would you handle it differently?
Oh, well, listen, all you can do is probably forget about that incident as quickly as you can. Yeah. And listen, as a club, we probably weren't prepared for that, and hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Did you, like, for instance, from your point of view, did you give out some instructions to, you know, let's...
No, not at all. I think that we wanted to fly the flag, but we just flew it the wrong way. And, you know, it's an emotional game, and our emotions got too high that day.
Are you, do you think, more emotional than most AFL coaches?
I don't know, you'd have to ask the other 15.
What do you think of the Milo rule? We just saw a little grab of it. Yeah, what happened then?
Listen, I can't say too much about it because I've, you know, got to find a couple of... Yeah, that's right, Stan. But listen, I think the Players Association have got every merit in probably having a look at it, because you do look at certain players there that were just trying to take players out of the situation, and they're copping a fine.
What about, Stan, just about the charging rule? We just spoke about that before, and we're unclear as to what a charge is. Are you clear as to what a charge is?
Probably 90% clear, Tim, and I think Rowan hit the nail on the head before. You just can't put a blanket over every incident because they're all different. Now, Wayne Campbell's on Metropolis, I think, was a terrific thing for football because the ball was definitely in dispute. It was at both players' feet, and there was a clash. Now, Darren Gasper's and Jared Malloy, very similar, because Darren Gasper, and the game isn't played in slow-mo, but actually the slow-mo helped Jared Malloy a little bit. Darren had run full tilt at the ball, had eyes for the ball. Jared thought he's a chance to get the ball, and he's in mid-air, and it's very hard to stop. And the ball was in dispute there. Now, I'm sure the tribunal will look at head high, and when you're talking forearms and things like that, but when it's a hip, there's still a grey area there, don't get me wrong, but I think they've just about got it right so far this year.
I marvel at Duncan Kellaway. I mean, the guy goes down with an incredible knee injury, comes back, and you give him easy tasks. I mean, you give him Buckley. I mean, it really is quite fantastic, isn't he? And his efforts in blanket him. I mean, if you had have known, what I'm trying to get at is it's just wonderful to have a player like that you can go out and give him those sort of tasks and know he's going to perform.
Tremendous standard. Listen, he kept very similar stats last year, but that's before he did his knee. Now, we were mindful of the fact that he mightn't have been as good as...
So you're going to watch some of him in action too, again,
compared to last year. But the thing about Duncan, he's just a true competitor. And I think once he gets over that white line, he's very fair, he does the job. And, you know, he's been terrific for us. And I must admit, I probably thought about round 10 we might see him get back to where he left off last year, but he seems to have picked up really quickly. And as far as knee goes, the surgeon and the doctors said it was a very clean cut as far as an oppo goes.
It's been an inspired move, his transition from, you know, pure defender to on-baller. When you were coaching against him, when he, you know, in his earlier years, when he was purely, you know, a very rugged, courageous back pocket, would you have thought he could have made that sort of transition? I mean, he seems to have really improved as a complete footballer.
Yeah, I suppose when I first got to the club, I looked at his endurance and I thought, well, if he's able to run with a guy, and listen, he's in the top 4 or 5 at our club in endurance, and I'm thinking, well, he's 6'1", he's fairly quick, and he's a real competitor. Why can't he go in there and do a lot of the hard stuff and maybe look at taking out one of the best opposition players and he does it well. And not only that, he gets a bit of the ball himself. And
He can play tall too for a 6'1" bloke, can't
he certainly can, and that was proved a couple of times the weekend where maybe he had to really stand up and take a couple of big grabs for us.
There's no doubt that if you can shut down the key forwards of an opposition side, you're well on the way to victory. I marvel at the jobs that Darren Gasper does week in, week out. Is he better than we all think he is?
Well,
or the general public thinks he is?
You're probably asking the wrong bloke here, but I just reckon he's would be the best negating defender that I've just about seen. And for the size of him, he's got great agility and great speed, but he's actually smart. He's a terrific footballer.
When was the last bloke actually beat him, do you think?
Oh, listen, oh, hell, you probably got me there a little bit, but listen, Chris Grant may have kicked 3 or 4 on him, but the last time someone kicked a bag on him would be before my time, I would have thought. But he's just, he's a real competitor, and he goes about very professionally. And I think before I got there, a lot of people look at the negatives of the players and some deficiencies they've got, but you've got to look at their strengths. And that's all we can do. I'm sure you want to improve certain aspects of their game, but these strengths far outweigh any deficiency you might have.
Well, how is his kicking? Has it improved?
I think it's definitely improved. I think sometimes you've got to look at which options he takes and make sure that he doesn't get too rich with it. But saying that, his skill level and his confidence is up, and his skill level drives with that also.
That's a good point, actually. You guys have taken a lot of criticism for your supposed lack of skill. Do you think the problem's been actually the lack of natural skills or the decision-making?
It's a bit of both, Rowan. And listen, after the Bulldogs game, there's no doubt that aspect let us down.
Surely decision-making is part of skill.
Yeah, it is.
No, but I mean, yeah, but I mean the, you know what I mean, the ability.
No, I don't know what you mean.
I think Patrick's right. I think better players.
Well, okay, hang on,
better
I'll
players
explain
make better
it.
decisions.
No, don't need it, Brian. We want to finish sometime.
Okay, well, if a guy's standing on his own and can kick a drop punt, well, you'd say his skills are okay.
But it's decision-making skill.
Yeah, but under the pressure of 5 guys running at you, that's decision.
Let me just jump onto another player who I think that
Pleasure.
We talk at the end of the year about what you need to do to go to not make the 8. I mean, you've got to really make a statement in the 8. And you're going to need a lot of players to improve. And one player, I think, who we've seen a lot of talent and ability, but we had a question mark over, Rory Hilton. Just a couple of times, just a couple of indiscretions, might have been a flaw in his makeup, but he's been superb again for you.
Yeah, I think Roy had never been suspended in his life till last year, and it was just one of those things. You say just, but he got done 3 times, so you've got to say, well, there's a real trend there. But before that, he had a clean slate, and I think he's got a terrific attack on the ball. And it was just 3 instances where he really did let himself down. And I haven't dwelled on it, to tell you the truth, because we need his aggression and his steel.
Just to your forward line, what's your best structure with your forward line? I mean, you dazzled early with the 3 trawls, and they haven't been that effective since then.
Well, someone had told me Friday night that Ottens and Richardson didn't kick a goal and we'd win by 15 points. I would have taken that before the game. And I think that's a real bonus. But I suppose a lot depends on conditions and the opposition. I've got no doubt on any given day that if Brad and Richo have a day out, that we're going to have a terrific win. But it's a little bit of a just wait and see what happens on the day. But I would have thought having those 2 with Matty Rogers and Rory floating forward, you know, Matty Knights and Tivendale, and when Nick Daffy comes back from injury next week, we've just about got it down pat.
They've only really sort of clicked once out of 4 times, haven't they?
Yes, yeah, but in saying that, maybe they could have been double teamed on the weekend, which allowed maybe a few of our midfielders to float through and kick some, and maybe their time will come hopefully Friday night against the Eagles.
You would have been happy with Otten's last quarter. I thought, you know, after a pretty poor game, he really turned it around.
Yeah, well, listen, he didn't train much for last week, for 2 weeks actually, so he's a little bit underdone, and I thought the way he finished the game really will put him in good stead for next week. But yeah, listen, you've got to remember Mark Richardson and Shane Wakelin have done some terrific jobs for Collingwood this year. So I think sometimes you tend to look at the forwards compared to the opposition, and they have very rarely been beaten, Wakelin and Richardson.
Dan, it's been a tough time for you in the box, a tense time. The last couple of weeks in particular, Collingwood came back on Friday night, the week before the Lions came back. Is that a worrying sign for you too, that you've been able to almost give up what was a match-winning lead like that?
Yeah, well, listen, it's happened 2 weeks in a row now, so we've talked about that as a group, and we've just got to make sure that if we want to be a good side, you do have to build on those leads, and it hasn't been a case of listen, we're 5 up, let's play preservation football. It's been a couple of situations where individuals in the opposition have been very, very good, and maybe we have had a mental lapse. It's got nothing to do with fitness, because we've kicked the last 2 goals and 3 goals in the 2 games, and it's just been probably a few positional things there, like from our defenders. And it's been a situation where, you know, we're not happy with it, and it's something that there's no doubt the positive out of the games to say, well, if we can really just finish our games off and play 4 quarters, we're going to have good wins.
How many goals do you let pass before you actually start to take a measure such as putting an extra bloke back or putting 2 extra blokes back? I mean, how many do you let 2 successive goals?
It's sort of a time frame too, I think. 2 successive goals could be 20 minutes apart, which is not a real trend. I suppose 2 quick goals, then it becomes a little bit of a trend, and you try and slow the game down, and most sides would do that.
They did go with a much smaller forward line towards the end of the game. Did that catch you out a bit?
Yeah, it did a little bit, and yeah, listen, they thought, well, their tools aren't working, their 3 tools, and they did, you know, they put Leon Davis down there and Brody Holland and young Nick Davis, so yeah, they had a very mobile setup.
We're going to have a look at some vision of you in the box. And,
oh,
and I
beautiful.
think this is important, because what we'd like to see, the supporters, Dan, just in the box there, your role. Now, it's a tense time. You've obviously got backup staff. Are you a coach who likes to have your people talk to you, or how do you actually operate in that circumstance?
Yeah, no, listen, I've got 3 line coaches, and Dave Whedon also looks after the opposition. So he
Are they giving you feedback?
Yeah,
in that situation there, you're getting feedback from them?
Is that the MCG?
Yeah, it's MCG.
In the southern stand.
And listen, there's no doubt. Listen, Dave Whedon tries to be the opposition coach and says, I'm really happy with this situation at the moment. What are you going to do about it? So Darren Crocker looks after.
It's interesting how you're holding the phone there. It looks like you're saying stuff, but you're not necessarily hearing much.
At the end of the game, do you have something?
That's how they talk on the phone in the movies, right?
No, that's your interview style.
Geez, you're after me tonight, Patrick. What's the story?
At the end of the game,
Better you than me, Ron.
yeah. At the end of the game, does somebody in the box assess your performance for you?
Listen, I suppose me being a new coach, it's been terrific that I've had Dave Whedon around for 15, 16 years of league football, so he's been able to tutor me a fair bit. And there's no doubt we've got a sports psych in Peter Kramer now. A lot's been said about players having sports psychs, but I'd have him in the box once every 6 weeks, just to see how things go and get a bit of feedback. So
and he'd be saying, well, I think maybe at that stage you got a bit agitated, or
yeah, I think it's terrific for me.
Yeah.
I think that I've had it filmed in the box and audio taped sort of every 2nd or 3rd week, because you can then go back, and if a player asks you a question you're not quite sure, you can sort of replay it and say, oh, yeah, well, I did make that sort of mistake, or yeah, this is the reason why I did this, and this. So yeah, I'm probably big on feedback, and I crave it really, because as I said, I'm very wet behind the ears, and I just want to make sure that I'm hopefully around for a while.
How important is on your bench to have a quality player like Paul Broderick, a bloke who's been around and to come on and the other night kick those 2 sealers?
Oh, tremendous. Listen, I think he's going to play his 150th game for the club this week, which is a terrific effort. I just think he's you get him at all clubs, and he's a complete professional.
He seems to have been on the fringes for 4 or 5 years. I mean, he was on the outer with Jeff Gershon, I think, from memory.
struggle with Jeff Gershon, yeah.
So, how's he survived? I mean, I think people who thought he was on the outer, say, 3 or 4 years ago would be surprised to see him still there.
He's a footballer. And
there's fewer of him around, isn't
there? There is, and he's very smart. Listen, he's not the quickest guy going around, but in clutch situations like that, he's just got a calming influence. And even on the bench, he's terrific for our young kids, because I suppose with 4 on the bench, you've usually got 1 or 2 youngsters in most sides, and he's could sort of sit next to Aaron Fiora and Mark Dragosevic and say, well, listen, Matty Knights is doing this because of this, this and this, and keeps them involved in the game instead of subconsciously just going through a bit of a stupor. So from that point of view, he's been tremendous, and I think from as the bench, like the old days, it was seen as a teaching tool and maybe a disciplinarian tool, and that still happens. But the sides that use the bench smartly, like the Essendon sides, you get rotations, and Paul is terrific to get in there, because he's going to do the right thing, and most times it comes off for him.
Danny, Steve Zill's been doing some good jobs for you. You got him with a pick which came about with a trade with the West Coast Eagles, with Mark Miranda going over there. Were you happy with that deal in the end? Did you think that Miranda had any football left in him at all?
Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry, no, Mark.
Listen, Mark was a terrific. I'm really wrapped for Mark. He worked his backside off last year with us, and unfortunately his back just let him down again. Now that was 3 years running, and he just needed to change a lap, and he really wanted to go home, and he went home with our blessings. And listen, I'm wrapped for him.
Goal of the year?
Oh, it wouldn't be far off it. Wouldn't be far. Hopefully he doesn't do it on Friday night.
But Zilla's been good for you too.
Zilla's been good, but listen, I'm wrapped for Mark. As I said, there's been no ill feeling from our point of view. It was an open door thing, and he was wrapped to go, and we were wrapped to see him get an opportunity.
Why did you get Zilla? I mean, a lot of people would have thought, oh, he's had his time.
Listen, the last 2 years we've recruited 12 youngsters, and I suppose that's nearly a third of your list. So we knew we weren't going to have a pick in the pre-season draft, and we just needed someone with a body. So Steve was that guy, and mindful of the fact that when we were going really well last year, we had Duncan Callaway and Clinton King going through the midfield doing some jobs on opposition. Now, Duncan had, at that stage, was still recuperating from a knee reconstruction, and Clinton King with his broken ankle. So when we were going really well, so we thought, well, Steve will come in and complement those guys, and we won't be forced to rush them back. Now, Clinton's out for another 3 or 4 weeks, so Steve's been able to fill the void there, but not only fill the void, but do a terrific job for us. So and I still think he can play for another 2 or 3 years. He's 29, and one thing about the injury list, and we go through the doctors every Monday morning with injuries. Every Monday you just see Steve Zilla's name, there's nothing there. He's just resilient, he just plays. I think he's missed 6 games through injury, and that was a broken thumb in 6 years of football.
He's very good. Sorry, he's very good. He's almost the best in the competition at when he does something like give the ball off, he protects. It's an amazing how he does a secondary thing where others won't think. He gives the ball off and then he makes sure who he gives it to is looked after.
Well, you're spot on, and his shepherding and work off the ball is tremendous, and he complements Duncan and allows our runners to maybe get a lot of easy ball.
Then just one final one for me. Doesn't get any easier. You've got the West Coast Eagles on Friday night.
No, you're right, Tim. It never stops this caper, and I think you've all hit the nail on the head. You could just throw a blanket over, take us an out, because I still reckon they're the best side in the comp. You could throw a blanket over the other 15, depending on whether they're at home or away, and it's a tough gig.
I bet it's a different proposition now, this game, than it looked, say, 3 weeks ago after the first round when they'd been poleaxed down at Geelong.
Well, I suppose that's terrific from our point of view, because we know we can't go over there and play anything but our best football to have any chance of taking the points home, and that's terrific.
Well, Danny, thanks for joining us tonight. Congratulations on your start, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks a lot, boys.
Well done, Spada.
Okay,
Thanks,
Danny
Sam.
Frawley, the coach of the Richmond Football Club. Coming up after the break, North Melbourne dual premiership player David King.
Here we go, footy fans. Watch for Bomber youngster Rob Forster Knight. Crunch.
Well, it was.
This bloke's pretty tough, but he can take a grab as well. Mark Johnson.
Oh, Hanneman's taken a screamer.
No, Bruce. Mark Johnson.
Well, he saw his skipper. Not only that, he's just about knocked out a Sydney player. We'll pick him up in a minute, Dipper.
And Mark Rasciuto, one of 4 magnificent goals.
The hero. Snap around the corner, bends it back. He's kicked
That is a goal, guys. I
He
went
has
behind
kicked
that.
a miracle goal.
Fair goal. So is this. I reckon left footers haven't got it right. Scott West begs to differ.
They're enjoying this. That's one of the goals of the year from Scotty West. If you want a backbreaker, that could be it.
Have a look at this for a collision. Sean McManus, David Wirrapunda.
McManus. Oh my goodness.
He's in trouble.
Play goes on. Wirrapunda hit him hard. He's going to.
The great thing is we'll see later on, he gets up and kicks a goal.
He is playing the footy too.
What about the transformation of this man? Defender to forward, should have got the free, gets up, recovers, snap. Who else? Gavin Wanganeen.
Puts it through the little chair.
Meterage that
And the King will now show you how to play Pagan's paddock in the wet.
By the captain, Carey kicks it goalwards. Is this going to roll?
It's Pagan's spot.
Well, as you saw there, conditions were atrocious at Shell Stadium yesterday, but one man who had no trouble at all in the wet was David King. 23 possessions, 3 goals, a match-winning performance, and he joins us now. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Tim.
What did you think when you woke up and you could hear the rain on the roof? You must have just thought, fantastic, all our prayers have been answered.
Yeah, it was good for us. I think we'd struggled a bit, obviously, the first 3 weeks, and we needed to have a bit of competitive spirit shown on the weekend, and they were ideal conditions. Yeah.
You had much left in the legs after that hard week on the track?
Oh no, we probably deserved the week on the track that we got, and we knew that it held us in good stead on
What
Sunday.
did you actually do? I mean, when you say it was a hard week on the track, was it?
You had match practice?
Match practice, a fair bit of running, and you know, just a fairly harsh assessment of where we were at, and that was what we needed.
You're a side that's sort of prided itself on its competitiveness, and even the three, well, not so much the first game, but the second two, you were relatively in touch quite late in the third quarter. How can it fall apart that quickly?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer, I guess. Yeah, we were pretty disappointed in the way it did fall apart, but you know, when sides get run-ons, they're very hard to stop, and momentum is something that we struggle to find ourselves. But the opposition had no problems in the last quarters, especially.
So, what did you need to do to steel yourself sufficiently?
Oh, we probably, I don't know. We probably looked at the fact that we had to win more of the ball, and you know, when you've got the ball, the opposition haven't. So.
Dave, the team's been under a fair bit of pressure, but one of your teammates, Lee Colbert, really has been under pressure, and he's had to go back to his old stomping ground. How did you feel for him when he started to turn it on?
Yeah, he was fantastic, Lee. I think that a lot of the criticism's been pretty harsh on Lee because he actually hasn't been going that bad. I think that he's been given a fairly tough week by all the press, and once it started rolling, it really compounded. Everyone was writing about him, and I felt so happy for Lee after the game. And he's a great guy, and everyone that knows him around the club and elsewhere, even at Geelong, respect him, and he's a quality player.
How do you feel when you heard him copping the jeers? I mean, did that fire you guys up?
Not really. We knew it was going to happen, and I think that Lee's strong enough to cope with that himself. He doesn't really need us to support him there, but we were aware that he would cop it, and I think that he handled it excellently.
He had a pretty good pre-season too, didn't he? I mean, it was a bit. You say he didn't play that poor. He didn't play that great either. It was a bit of a mystery, I think, what sort of happened there for a couple of
weeks.
In
the Ansett Cup, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
He had a really good Ansett Cup, and I think that it's very early in the year. It's very harsh criticism 3 rounds in that he was copying. I think that he was given a couple of bum raps early on Jonathan Brown from Brisbane. He didn't play him that long, and look, I think he had a tough 3 weeks. And
but I think a lot of it was because the team wasn't playing well. And when the team's not playing well, they target people, don't they? Saying he's got to stand up. He's got to stand up. He's a player who was brought in, and because you had a lot of your good players, including yourself, out, I think that he wore a fair bit of that brunt because he was expected to carry the mantle.
Yeah, and he probably expected to be able to do that himself, and we would hope that he thinks like that. And we know that when we start winning and playing well, then he can play with a bit more confidence and a bit more flair.
He's already captained Geelong. Do you see him as a future leader of North Melbourne?
Oh, he's already a leader at the club. There's no doubt about that. That's Lee's style, and that's why we've got him. That's why we went after him, I suppose. So we know he's a leader, and he doesn't have to tell us he wants to be a leader. He is a leader.
What about Dennis's instructions yesterday prior to the game? How simple were they?
Oh, pretty basic. We knew the conditions down there. You didn't need to work out too many strategies to win the game, and we just knew we had to play hard footy for 120 minutes.
Were they? I mean, their conditions are pretty tailor-made for the way you guys play footy, though, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really matter the way we play footy what the conditions are, but if you wanted to get a win on the board like we did, you'd hope that was the way it was going to be.
Do you think there's an argument that a lot of players now find it harder to play in conditions like that because they probably see less of them?
Yeah, it was unique on the weekend. There's no doubt about that. I've never seen a ground like that, and
this is not a bad bit of play. Talk us through this one.
Oh, that probably comes from years of playing at Kilmore, I think. We get used to the weather like that.
Kilmore. That'd be a perfect day at Kilmore.
that was gone by lunchtime, but no, I think that it was very strange, and we probably weren't used to it, like I said, and we didn't know what to expect, but it was good.
It was very much like the old North Melbourne, though, wasn't it? When North Melbourne were at their absolute best, they used to go out there in the first quarter and blast sides away. It was 5-1 a quarter time, and that was really the end of the game almost.
Yeah, we needed to start well, and basically just for ourselves to get our own confidence up, and we knew we could do it, and it was just a matter of actually doing it, and it worked well, and things went our way.
Can you tell in the rooms before a game whether the side and everybody? I mean, how you're feeling yourself. Did you ever feeling anything special in the rooms before this game?
Not really. I think sometimes you think you're going to go really well and you feel the build-up's great and you get out in the ground and it doesn't happen, and other times you worry and you go out and kick the first 5 goals. So it's hard to pick, and I don't know how the coaching staff go or how the other players go. I think it's pretty hard. Yeah.
On the subject of the coaching staff, Dennis Pagan had this to say after the game about the instruction to the players to kick torpedo punts in the wet conditions.
We spoke about it at our team meeting at the Macura Hotel yesterday morning. We wanted to make sure we made contact with the belly or the fat of the ball, and our blokes did it superbly, and I think we gained an advantage there by kicking flat punts, and probably a lot of occasions gained 10 or 15 yards in distance.
It was great to watch, Tim. I've got to tell you, it was like watching, you know, 2 sets of grade 5 kids in the schoolyard at lunchtime, just seeing who could kick the biggest talk. But the thing was, I reckon for every one that worked, there were about 18 that didn't.
Yeah, it was pretty scrambly. There's no doubt about that. I think that something we'll probably have to work on. Maybe you wouldn't play in these conditions very often, but Johnny Blakey had a couple going during the day, but you're not going to show the better ones there by the look of it. But,
doesn't the ball, I mean, in conditions like this, though, you just get onto one, and that's not a bad one. But even the ones that don't work, once they hit the ground, they skid as far as they go through the air.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of them got over the back of the pack too, which actually helped our forwards.
And Bomber Thompson actually admitted after the game his defenders were a bit lax in getting back far deep enough to cut them off as well.
What does it mean, this victory? I mean, can you sense within the club that you may have turned the corner, or have you just stopped the rot for the momentarily, or what's the feeling within the club?
Oh, I guess it probably stops all the negative publicity we've had over the last few weeks, and I think that it actually gives the players some confidence to go out and play as well as they can, and with the confidence that now we've had a win that they can build on. I think that the key players, that most of the leaders at the club had a good weekend in terms of performance. I think they can build on that. I think we've got some younger kids that hadn't played in a win at the club and hadn't been swept in the emotion of victory with the other guys, so that's a positive.
David, was the mood at the club last week as low as you've known it in the time you've been there? Was it as serious as you've known it in the time that you've been there?
We've had some poor starts to years. Obviously, the past few years we've had that, but the way we were getting beaten was probably the concern. The margins we were getting beaten by, and I think that the players, we take the responsibility for that. We know that our head's on the chopping block, and the club where it's at the moment needs to perform on the field, if anything.
To that end, I mean, it must give you a lot of confidence to know that the last time you won a premiership, you're in exactly the same position then as you are now, 1 and 3. So I mean, it's not beyond turning it around, is it?
Yeah, I think that we've got the ability as a club to string a few wins together, and hopefully we can get 4 or 5 in a row now.
How important then is it to have that win, and now you actually get to travel together because you go to Adelaide? I know they've started a bit of form, it's a tough one, but do you feel that that'll be a real benefit because you just get a chance to all be together, don't you?
Yeah, we really enjoy it. I think it's good for the younger kids too. We've got quite a few on the side at the moment, and the new guys. We've been to Brisbane, we've been to Sydney, and now we go to Adelaide, so it's a fairly hectic travel schedule early in the year, but it's really enjoyable. We really love it.
Pretty tough start when you look at your first 5 games. Essendon, Lions, Sydney in Sydney, Geelong down at Geelong, Adelaide in Adelaide. I mean, at the start of the year, you looked at it, you probably would have thought, well, we're going to have to be at our absolute best to get off to a good start for this season. Yeah,
they're big games, and I think you can go right through the whole fixture and panic yourself a bit. I mean, you probably right down the next 5 games, they're probably just going to be just as hard. So there's no shortage of challenges, there's no doubt about that.
Well, Troy Makepeace did a particularly good job yesterday on Ronnie Burns, who's been a real live wire for Geelong. Perhaps difficult conditions too for small forwards. This is Ronnie Burns at his best. Almost collared there by Makepeace, gets up and kicks a goal. At this stage of the game, it probably gave Geelong a lot of hope going into that last quarter, but this is Ronnie Burns probably at his worst.
There's only about 2 minutes in this too, Tim, and I mean, he should have taken that obviously, but even then, he probably should have still kicked the goal too. And that was the funny thing, despite the wind advantage, which had to have been worth, I reckon, 3 or 4 goals, the only 2 goals in the second half were kicked into the wind. One in each quarter. Well, you kicked the one in the last quarter, and Burns kicked one in the third quarter, and they were the only 2 goals in the second half.
Yeah, I think that most of the players and the play got down the back half, or that was considered our back half in the last quarter, so it was fairly congested there.
Glad to hear the siren go. I bet it must have been a very draining sort of game.
Yeah, it's good to see us in front for a change when the final siren went.
Just want to speak to you. I mean, you've now become quite a different player to the one who first started. When you first started, we sort of know you as a defender, back pocket or half-back flanker. You really enjoyed the transition of Dennis releasing him upfield to allow you a little bit more attacking flair?
I think as a footballer now, you've probably got to have a few different roles you can play in the team if you want to survive for a long period of time. Look at a guy like John Blakey, who can sort of play anywhere. I think that you've got to be able to survive, and I think that if I can play a role up forward, whether it's kicking goals or trying to set them up, or in the midfield or down back, it's going to help me out in the long term.
Well, David, one area that you did dominate Geelong in yesterday was the midfield, and we've got a graphic just to illustrate that, the number of possessions by the North Melbourne midfield players there, and you certainly got a lot yesterday from your more senior, experienced players, particularly in that part of the ground.
Yeah, we did, and I think it's very important that those guys, those names there, you know, Anthony Stevens, Brent Harvey and Shannon Grant, Adam Simpson, they all use the ball very well, and they need to get plenty of it for us to win.
The bottom two in particular, David, I mean, I think it's fair to say they've probably struggled a little bit. I mean, that was probably the best game either of those guys have played for, well, since last season, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for varying reasons. I think that guys have had roles on other players. Maybe they don't seem to be get 30 kicks a game. They probably try and limit their opposition.
Is that Simpson you're talking about there?
Yeah, Adam probably gets a big role every week, so it's very hard on him. And you know, his numbers probably don't look as good as his performance.
Grant was terrific yesterday. I thought just put his body.
David, just stay there for a minute. It's time now for us to take a look at the Nissan Pulsar answer to the question last week in What Happened Next.
The answer to last week's question in our Nissan Pulsar What Happens Next competition is...
To Billy Picken. He better hurry up because time is running out at the 32-minute mark. And scores North Melbourne a goal in front. The kick by Picken.
C. The game is drawn.
There's a mark into someone. Fires for the goals. And he's put it through and scores.
Be watching next Monday night at 7:30 to find out the correct answer in this week's What Happens Next competition.
You got that one, David?
Oh, you're right. You
You're about 5 now, right?
Well, you can go and enjoy the rest of the week, no doubt. It won't be as hard as last week's, and you can think about the Crows this weekend. There's going to be a tough game on the road for you.
Yeah, it will be. Thanks very much.
Terrific. And coming up after the break, we'll take a look at that victory by the Crows over Carlton on Saturday at Optus Oval, the upset of the round.
The Adelaide Crows, and Gary Ayres deserving to get, look at that, who can touch the coach first? Fantastic performance by the Adelaide Crows, 9-8-62 to 8-5-53. We certainly...
Emotional scenes there at Optus Oval at the conclusion of that game between the Adelaide Crows and Carlton. The Crows winning in an upset by 9 points in fairly difficult conditions there on Saturday, and I guess there's been some speculation about perhaps Gary Ayres and that team, but they were extraordinary scenes, weren't they? Given they were it was the players' instigation to go to the coach, and there was genuine feeling amongst that group of players for that coach.
They don't look like players who hate their coach.
They certainly don't. I mean,
I'll tell you what they do look like, though. They look like a group of people who thought their coach was under pressure.
There's no doubt about that. They must have been feeling the pressure on behalf of the coach.
All week Adelaide was saying, look, there's no pressure on Gary Ayres, and their president said this before the game on radio. And there was an interview on Sport 927 here in Melbourne between John Reid and Gary Honey, and John Reid was very, very angry with the suggestion that all was not well with Adelaide, and you sensed that something quite dramatic was happening within the week, and I think you saw it on the footy field.
In addition to that, just hang on, in addition to that, so were the players under pressure, the senior players.
Sure.
Nigel Smart said after the game that was an enormous significant win to them. I'll try and get that out again. Enormously significant win to them, even to the point where the senior players had actually gone out during the week together and decided that they needed to do something themselves.
Can I ask you, blokes? I reckon there's a fair argument that if you're a coach of one of the bigger interstate sides, i.e. Adelaide or West Coast, you're probably going to come under that pressure, say, 3 or 4 games earlier than would a coach of a Melbourne club. I mean, it's such a goldfish bowl over there. All the players are well known. The magnifying glasses on them all day, every day. Must be enormous pressure, and I reckon maybe sometimes over here we don't take that into account.
Well, the focus would be intense, but I would have thought probably the fact that they came off a game that they should have won the previous week against Melbourne, I would have thought maybe they would have gone into their shells a bit, but that's why I thought in the end it was a far more meritorious win.
Well, they got fixed
this
up
week
by
against
Port.
Carlton.
They got fixed up by Port in between.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
But they have been, generally pretty competitive, I think.
Now, you said coaches can't tell, in that first 5 minutes of where a match is going. But
No. I can tell in the first 5 minutes. I can't tell in the rooms.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
But I thought in the first 5 minutes of that game, you just penciled down Adelaide.
Yeah, and the skipper made his mark, didn't he?
Yeah,
Mark Rasciuto.
So. Yeah, he was brilliant.
Absolutely physical. I mean, look, that should have been possibly even a report.
I think a report for rough play. But
let me tell you, this is his statement that he was making, and not only did he do this, but he then concentrated on the ball, and I think a few of the Blues tried to even up on him.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he was very strong. He kicked 4 magnificent goals, but every time was body on body.
When you think about it, like, I mean, they were a very physically,
they had to go at him then.
physically strong side in their premiership years. They haven't shown a lot of grunt in the last couple of years, have they? So, I mean, it's obviously reflected in what he's trying to do there, but just crossed my mind then, you know, seeing him dishing out some of that treatment. You haven't seen that done by Adelaide for a while.
No, see, they were after him everywhere, but his ability to absorb that, go back and he kicks a goal from this. And you can just see how it just ignites all his teammates.
He wasn't going to leave the field without a victory.
No.
Every time the game was in the balance, it was he that actually stood up and said, OK, I'm going to put this beyond doubt.
Unlike Carlton to get sucked in too. I mean, probably, you know, for such an experienced side, you'd probably expect them to react a bit more.
And you just wonder how or what the mental state was of Carlton going into this game, coming off the back of such a magnificent victory too.
And a hard one.
And their 3 champions coming back.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fine line now in this competition.
Everyone will leave their stars out now because then they'll be short.
You know, Nathan,
I don't know that we'll see a trend.
Nathan Buckley said on the weekend that any 20 players tuned in as one are capable of anything on a football field. That's
on a given day.
Yeah, on a given day. That's why Carlton beat Essendon.
Yes.
And he was alluding to the fact that's why Adelaide beat Carlton.
Only if the other sides. I don't reckon you can say that in all cases.
No, but rather, the converse to that is the champion teams, the Essendons, can do it week in and week out. The others have got to get up to that level, and they can't maintain it.
I still think at the moment you can say that Essendon's best is better than anyone else's. Any side that wants to beat Essendon has to hope that as well as playing to their best, they have to play. Well, there hasn't been many seasons that I can remember.
But Danny Frawley said it as much before.
No, but I think it's been a lot. There hasn't been many times in recent history where you've been able to say that that one side at its best could beat any other single side without fear.
Well, there's no doubt that the coach of the Adelaide Football Club at the weekend was very happy with his skipper. This is what Gary Ayres had to say after the game about Mark Rasciuto.
That's what a captain to me does. He leads exactly from the front. You know, he's copped it, and we all know it hasn't been his fault, and really that's the best way possible that you can respond. And of course we played him in a pretty difficult position today, and I just thought that he commanded authority when the ball was in his area, and he really kick-started us too early. And again, we want this now for him to build, which is confidence, and again he should feel pretty good about himself after today.
Stan, another player I think is a real barometer to this Adelaide Crows side is Peter Vardy.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're right. He'll do something. We're going to see him now. It's his ability to kick goals, and he's a strong player. You'll see there sometimes he'll kick them when you don't expect him to. I think one of why he's also a barometer. And we'll talk about Jarman in a minute. He was magnificent. But we'll see here. But the problem is, look at how smart. Look how he uses the umpire. Look at this. Got the umpire to shepherd for him. Absolutely terrific. He has that awareness, but he's a barometer also, Tim, because sometimes he goes missing, and he has the effect the other way.
Rob Walls nominated him in the Age as Adelaide's most overrated player, which is probably a reasonable call, I think. He really hasn't done a lot since that 98 premiership, which is now 3 years ago.
I wouldn't say he's overrated.
Underperformed.
I would say he's underperformed.
No, I said overrated.
That's right. I wouldn't say he's overrated. I would just say that for the last 2 years he's been missing.
Yeah.
Whether it be through injury or form.
For 2 years is probably a case that you're overrated, isn't it? Because, I mean, I think after the 98 premiership he was regarded as being in their upper echelon of players. He's had a lot of injury problems too. He's had, you know, foot problems, ankle problems. And age-wise, I think, what would he be, 27, 28?
Oh, he's not old.
No, he's not
old.
No, he's not. He'd be 25. No. Yeah. I think that, you know, if you can get a small forward in this competition firing, like we see Ronnie Burns, Phil Matera, small goal kickers, I mean, you're halfway there if you've got a goal kicker that is potentially that dangerous going into a game, week in, week out.
There's not many
and if he can recapture that form that he showed in their premiership years, then, I mean, he's really going to help their cause enormously this year.
There's not many specialist ground-level goal kickers anymore, is there? I mean, you think about Farmer, you think about blokes like that, but I don't think there's as many as there used to be.
There's more of them than full forwards right now.
Yeah. Tim, the other thing, of course, where he can become important is the fact that now that they've put Darren Jarman down the back half, and we saw him come back from injury after he had a magnificent Ansett Cup form, and he was able to play that sweeping role, he now gets the footy and his delivery. Now that's a short pass, but most of his kicks on Saturday were just breaking through. So he's playing off half back, and now look where he's going. He's taking the ball up, and Vardy and other players are going to be the recipients of that.
Stan, did they actually play him on somebody, or they try and make him the loose player across half back?
He started off on an opponent, but what he did then, he virtually said, look, blast you, I'm better at getting the footy, I'm going to go forward and get the ball anyway. And then in the finish, what happens is he just kept making space down there. They just kept using him. They would transfer the play to him, even if they had to get it backwards, because he was then so dynamic in what he did.
It'll be interesting to see how North Melbourne attack him this week, won't it? Because they won't allow him just to sit back there and start playing.
Are you surprised he's able to play that role now? I mean, I would have thought at that age, and the fact that he's slowing down a bit, it might have been a bit harder for him endurance-wise.
I think it's the easiest spot on the field to play.
You have to cover
if you're a smart player like Jarman, I think to go back there at this stage, that sweeping role for anybody who's a natural footballer, a natural reader of the play like he is, I think it's just a perfect fit.
You've got to cover the ground though, don't you?
Yeah, but he had, what most people forget is he's had a very hard and long pre-season. He's probably done more work pre-season this year than he's done in the last 5 years, if you can believe the people from Adelaide. So he's very fit. He had a bit of an interruption with injury, but now he's come back and he's fit. So he has got that base fitness behind him.
He's the best kick I've ever seen. I'm going to pay good money to go and watch him kick for goal.
But they're playing, those sweepers now really playing like point guards in basketball. They set the play up.
Saw Matera do it the week before.
You give them the ball and then they take the best option, and then you've got to play in motion.
Exactly.
Talking about playing the best options, Hawthorn certainly played the best options in the last quarter against Melbourne yesterday at the MCG to set up their 39-point win. And they were terrific early, and then Melbourne got back into the game during the second and third quarter, but then after a probably controversial decision, I thought, in the last quarter, they slammed them on towards the end. But, gee, they're a skillful side. And I actually think this Hawthorn side is potentially the only side at the moment that I see capable of beating Essendon come September. I reckon they've got that much improvement still left in them as a unit.
Yeah,
well, it's pretty notable, this game, I think. A similar game last year, I think Melbourne fixed them up by just about 100 points. And Peter Schwab commented after the game that they'd already this year knocked over Melbourne and Carlton, second and third last year, both of whom had fixed them up badly. So that gives you some illustration of their improvement, I think. They're a bit more resilient now too, I think.
They're nowhere near as brittle as I thought they were last year. I thought that sides used to come at them physically, and I used to think that they would crumble last year, but I reckon they actually show a lot more resilience in that area. And they've got the athleticism and the fitness too for players when the game needed to be won yesterday, and once they got the stiff of it, they really went for the jugular.
Look, going along to that game, I thought, wow, it's wet conditions, and we talk about their talls all the time, how strong they are, but it was players like we saw Aaron Lord and also Dixon. Dixon was a great player. He worked up the ground. It was Leckis, it was McCabe, Piccioni, those players who improved dramatically.
And just one, I reckon if there's one query still on Hawthorn, it'd probably be on the midfield. And Melbourne's got a very
beaten by Melbourne were well beaten by Hawthorn, as I said. Crawford, good form. Harford was good. But Choney was good. Chick going in there was good. They were loose at times. Other players in there, they were just too strong for Melbourne.
They've almost developed a second tier of midfield players there as well. Piccioni, as we've already mentioned, and then Leckis later in the game. They threw young Green, Stephen Green, in there for a little while. Tim Clark comes on when Pace is off the game playing it today.
And we talk about Rawlings going to centre half backs, change it around. There's a kid called McFarlane. I don't know if you've seen him play so far. He is one special kid.
Yeah, he was identified very early by Dermot Brereton. I can remember him saying very early, this boy is something special.
He kicked 7 goals in one game for, I think it was East Perth or East Fremantle, and then they just hit him away basically for the rest of the season.
If they've got one concern at the moment, I would think it may only be Trent Crode's form. It's very indifferent, taken off last week over at Freo for long periods of time. Yesterday again, he spent a lot of time on the bench. But this bloke, we talk about leadership, Adelaide Crows with Rashudo. This bloke, I thought, was just outstanding in these conditions. Kept leading Jonathan Hay to the ball all afternoon.
He would have been best on the ground if he had to kick the goals. Unfortunately, it was the only blemish. But in terms of how he did when they're up against it, he just came out and he was just superb. He just presented himself all day.
Do you look back now on the supposed battle for the Melbourne captaincy between Neitz and Schwartz, and wonder why the question was ever asked. I mean, I don't think there's much doubt they made the right decision, is it?
How did Schwartz play, by the way?
Very well.
I didn't see enough of that match. Coming off his week.
Well, the way I perceive it, nothing really went for him. He didn't take any big marks, but I thought he showed enormous character. His bullocking role, he got in, he pushed, he shoved. Looking at it from a coaching perspective, you would have just absolutely been thrilled with him because nothing went right for him, but he never gave up for 1 second.
I mentioned before a controversial decision in the last quarter. Melbourne kicked the first goal of the last quarter through Woden. They were within a couple of goals, and the ball went to centre half forward, and we see Leoncelli, and that is the grey area of the game there, isn't it? That split second, 100th of a second. I thought that it was a decent attack on man and ball by Leoncelli. Now, Dixon goes into the goal square and kicks a goal and effectively ends the run.
Yep. You tell. Surely that is a call. I mean, you pay the mark or you pay the free kick. But if you're claiming to pay 50 for him being late, which clearly he is, I mean, that's how late it is. It's about 100th of a second. I defy any human being who is racing in to attempt to make that spoil to have pulled out of that contest in 100th of a second. If we can see it again, that contact is almost instantaneous with him taking the mark. Now, if you're going to pay that as being late, you're going to pay 9 out of 10 contests as being late.
Neil Danaher paid no account to this at all. He
because
just
he couldn't
dismissed
afford to.
No, that's not right.
It is right.
I think they would have been... Patrick, I think they would have been seething about this.
He couldn't afford to dismiss it, could he? I mean, he couldn't afford to look at it as an excuse.
No, I think...
Why couldn't he?
Oh, because if a coach is seen to be coming out blaming umpires...
No, you're talking about an excuse. He had the option of saying, well, it was disappointing.
Well, would you do that if you were a coach and you saw...
Well, I would, because I wouldn't get fined.
I don't think any coach...
But I think, boys, that he was more concerned that after that, regardless if it was the right or wrong decision, I think he was more concerned that his players actually dropped their heads.
Yeah, well,
had a number of goals.
What you're suggesting is the game turned there, and he was saying, and Neil Danaher's saying, well, that's not right. We still had an opportunity.
If my players are using that as the excuse, you're right.
Didn't quite come to terms with.
I think the one thing for certain is that Hawthorn are the real thing. The other side, I think, are the real thing, are Port Adelaide. And just look at Port, powerful in 2001, and they certainly are playing a different brand of football than what we saw. I know Mark Williams has said that they changed their style from about round 12 last year and finished on strongly towards the end of the season, but they've become a very direct, efficient side, and they just blew St Kilda out of the water in the first quarter. 6 goals to none. There could have been 10 goals to none in that first quarter. They were quite dominant through the midfield. We saw Schofield then come onto the ground, really didn't play much of a part or a role in the first quarter, but came on and had 5 or 6 touches for the rest of the game, and their midfield players now are really starting to cause some concern for opposition sides.
Well, probably magnified 2 things. One, the spread of on-ballers they've got and the pace that they've got, but also, too, I think it probably showed St Kilda's lack of pace up a fair bit, and you two guys are in a position to comment on that.
No, there's no doubt that I think St Kilda are very slow in that midfield area, and it was interesting to see the way they played Burke on Saturday night too. He started down back. I think Nathan still has some major concerns about playing against quick forwards, as we found out last year, and then in the midfield he still has problems there keeping up in the midfield too, so that's got to be a concern to St Kilda at this stage as to where to play him.
Well, they've nearly played him everywhere, because early Malcolm had him pushing up forward.
And he was off the ground again on Saturday night as well.
Yeah. Just we're not going to see much of him, but I'll tell you, if you're players at the height of Burgoyne and those type of players, let me tell you, a godsend is when you've got a ruckman like Matthew Primus as your skipper, because not only does he go for a tap, and this is a lesson probably for most ruckmen, he hits the ball and then he goes to ground and just crashes and bashes everybody. They can just play with that because they've almost got an extra on-baller.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stan. I don't think there's a big man in the game that has as much effect on the game as Matthew Primus is at the moment. And for that very reason too, not only is he winning the aerial duels and the ruck contests, but once the ball hits the ground, he's actually clearing a path if he doesn't get the ball, and then he actually carries the ball too.
Don't you think he's a great example of how ruckman can mature later on? I mean, from all reports, when he was playing in the thirds in Geelong, he could barely, coordinate himself enough to drop foot to ball, and now, I mean, he's sort of a self-taught ruckman in a way, and he's done a great job, as well as being a natural leader.
Well, one of the things you can never see from outside is how big the thing inside the rib cage is, and I think we can almost see how big it is now with him.
It's got ticker.
Yeah, my word, he has.
Ron, I heard you on the radio yesterday just mentioning the skills of St Kilda and your concern that the balls weren't... I know you wrote an article about it earlier in the year, or last year, but the fact that the balls weren't brought out until January.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just think, you know, I did cop a lot of flack about it, and I think you would have watched that game on Saturday night and had a look, particularly at some of the younger, rawer members of the list, and thought their skills really aren't up to par, and surely there's an argument that they, more than anyone, would have benefited from as much work as possible with the balls. If you want an example, I think a good example, and I was thinking about this as I was watching the game, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but Stephen Baker, I mean, as good as he is and as tight as he is, and he's been great for him this year, his disposal's pretty poor. I think St Kilda have more players than most sides whose disposal is a bit suspect.
There's no doubt they're going to have to work on that over the next couple of weeks because they've got another tough game this weekend.
Yeah, Blight's answer, of course, is, well, I can fix that on the track. I can do that on the track, fix those skills.
Too bad if there's 2-10 at the halfway point of the season.
I think he's got a bit of work to do on the track.
And more than he thought, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, we saw the answer to last week's Nissan Pulsar. What happened next question? Let's take a look at this week's question.
Here's your chance to win a Nissan Pulsar sedan or hatch. The Nissan Pulsar has air conditioning, airbag, CD player and keyless entry. Simply watch the following AFL moment and tell us what happens next for your chance to go into the draw to win Australia's best-selling small sedan.
Well tackled that time. It'll be play on. It'll be a free kick now. The umpire calling play on as Russell Morris drives it out there towards the wing position, the back flag.
What happens next? A free kick. B, a brawl erupts. C, the ball is marked. If you know the answer, call 1902 555 649. All correct entries will be placed in the final draw for the Nissan Pulsar sedan or hatch. The winner will be announced during Football Feedback on October the 1st, 2001. Be watching Football Feedback Monday nights at 7:30 to find out the correct answer to this week's Nissan Pulsar What Happens Next competition.
Rowan.
Well, if you want a little clue, everyone, just have a look for that animal wearing number 32 for the red and black.
OK, well, we will. OK, coming up after the break, we'll see and check on how the Bombers got back on track on Friday night at the SCG.
That was, James.
Yeah, it's one of the best, I reckon, since I've been at the club. You know, we got kicked last week, and the guys are pretty down all week. But we lost Lloydie and Joey and a few other guys to come up and win. I think it shows the character of these players. And you know, we're here to stay. Different. We're not one-year wonders. We're going to have a great year this year.
Well, some people were writing them off after that loss to Carlton. I thought that perhaps they'd struggled against the Sydney Swans given the number of players they had out, but they were magnificent again, Ryan. 47-point winners. And James heard that man we just saw on screen a moment ago was, well, he was just a class above the rest of the players, I thought.
Well, you're talking about wet weather football, and strength stands out in wet weather football, but so does skill, doesn't it? And, I mean, look at that. Kick over your shoulder, cross your shoulder.
That's in the rain too.
50 metres out, in the wet.
This mark, I think this is the mark. No, it's not the one.
It's not bad, though.
It's the next one.
Yeah,
the next mark when it comes out.
Front.
To meet the ball, yeah.
And young kids, if you're going to... Youngsters, just watch this how you mark in the wet. You flatten your hands, keep the ball in front, take it next time to your chest.
It was just the body work he did on Saddington, and then as the ball approached too, he just held himself back long enough to give himself a little bit of space.
Yeah, his delivery is just absolutely sensational, and he's got a fantastic footy brain. I mean, he's a complete package.
And they've unearthed another couple of players. I thought Peveril did a very good job on Swass at the weekend.
Interesting story. Peveril played for Melbourne Seconds. I think he was runner-up in their best and fairest. He is an Essendon local. I think he's out of the Keilor area. But interestingly too, did for the second time this year, played on Wayne Schwass in a practice game at North Sydney early in the year, did a very good job, and did it again on Friday night.
You wouldn't have thought it was his first game of football.
No.
He's a very accomplished looking kid, wasn't he?
Now, I want to ask you two guys here, right? You two coaches.
Being sarcastic.
Would you leave Dustin Fletcher alone roaming across the half-back line in a game? Honestly.
That was the one thing that staggered me. I mean, Rodney Eade is a wonderful coach and has a great reputation as a thinker.
Yeah.
But how Dustin Fletcher was allowed to dominate and control the game?
It's not as easy as you think, though, when you're in the coach's box, because every time the other night that they sent an extra player down there for Fletcher to actually pick up, Essendon brought another player back. So at one stage they had 9 against 10 in that part of the ground.
But Tim, didn't they have the option of putting down a player and saying, listen, just defend on Fletcher. If they release somebody else, he's not going to be as effective as Fletcher is on his own.
Some of those blokes that read the play, as well as Dustin Fletcher reads the play, as well as Nathan Buckley reads the play, they're very, very difficult to actually take out of the game and stop.
Sure.
On a small ground like the SCG as well.
Yeah, I think that Eade had an opportunity to at least make him less effective by taking a defender down and just saying defend against Fletcher, and that's all you have to do. And I think it may have freed up another Essendon player, but that player wouldn't have been as dominant as Fletcher.
I think it gets back to philosophies though too about how defensive you become during a game.
Well, I think Sydney played a very unconventionally Sydney sort of game. You know, I don't think they were, from what I've seen of the game, I haven't seen the whole game, but they weren't flooding back as often as usual. I'm just wondering if, could be a bit out there, this could be complete rubbish, but I just wonder if maybe Eade said, let's play them on our terms. You know, let's not counter them. Let's play to our strengths and see how we go. Maybe now he'll reassess, and next time they play us, and they'll be doing all that stuff.
Now, Essendon big winners by 47 points on Friday night. Other big winners on Saturday were the Bulldogs. I mentioned they were the inconsistent Bulldogs. Were at their very best on Saturday against what I thought was a disappointing Brisbane Lions side.
Oh, disappointing. You're doing them a few favours there.
This bloke must have been fantastic, Hudson.
He is, and, you know, we talked before, is there a better consistent goal kicker in the game? Probably the only one who comes close is Darren Jarman. He's just a beautiful, beautiful kick. And you could tell he was on right from the moment he kicked his first one too. I mean, he struggled a bit the week before, but just looked the goods.
I think the Brisbane Lions will be happy to get back up at the Gabba and start playing some football to hopefully build some momentum up there. But, Patrick, they've got some concerns with Bradshaw and Lynch. It just doesn't seem to be working with those two players in their forward line.
They never seem to get it right, do they? Or they can't get a balance that works for them. It's either Lynch is down or Bradshaw's down, or worse, both are down. Are they too slow? Are they good enough on the ground when they can't win it in the air? I'm not sure.
I think that's their major concern. I think they're both talented, although I think Lynch is probably coming towards the end of what has been a very good career. But I just don't think Bradshaw gives them enough of a contest when the ball hits the ground. And just watching him at the weekend too, I just don't think that he works hard enough. I think he has one lead in him and then he doubles back or stops, and I think it's just far too easy to shut him down.
Just on a general level, you don't get any sense of a real strong, united group of players. Now, I might be doing them a disservice, you know, I'm not trying to suggest there's ructions or whatever in the playing group, but I just don't reckon they have the same sort of spirit about them as, say, the Bulldogs, who they were playing there do.
Is that a reflection on their coach?
That's probably more a reflection on the culture they're coming from, and you know, I think it's a pretty laid-back place, Brisbane, and there's no doubt the players up there are, you know, can escape a bit easy, and they can, all those things. I think they really do add up in the end, and there's no doubt in my mind with Brisbane, mentally, they are just nowhere near as hard as the other leading teams in the competition, who they should be up among.
Well, the Brisbane Lions were disappointing at the weekend, but I think the derby lived up to all expectations over in the West, particularly up until three-quarter time. The West Coast Eagles took until the final turn to really blow the game open when they kicked 7 goals to 3 in this last quarter. 20 reports in this match last year, possibly played with a little less spite this time round.
Yeah, I watched most of it, and it was, again, look, the Dockers, you know, they're not playing that badly.
They're not that far off it,
They've got to jag a win, and the worry now is...
The problem is they've been in positions to win and they're not winning.
Yeah.
And you just wonder how that ethic starts to creep into them, into their mindset.
Well, what you do worry is if they go to Brisbane this week and get a spanking, whether the bottom then drops out of it. I mean, they were level at three-quarter time, but West Coast did really take control in the last quarter, and I guess the last quarter fade-outs of the issue. They were, you know, leading Carlton pretty well and lost control of that game. Collingwood, they were thereabouts, lost control of that. Who was their other loss?
It is the Greg Chappell defence, though, isn't it? I'm batting
not batting barely.
I'm batting really well. I just keep making ducks.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we were saying the West Coast Eagles were going to finish 16th, 15th, or 14th. They've turned that around a couple of weeks, and now they've got a home game this weekend too against Richmond on Friday night, which will be a terrific clash.
Yeah.
I've got a $50 bet with someone that Freo's going to finish higher than West Coast on the ladder, and I'm starting to look a bit sick, I think.
Let's have a look at what's coming up on C7 Footy Focus this Thursday night. We've run out of time again to talk about the football from last weekend. This weekend's round of footy starts on Wednesday. Peter Donegan there with Pete Dacos, Mark Harvey and Crackers Keenan. And one-on-one, Dwayne Russell going head-to-head this week with Paul Salmon. And let's take a look at round 5 Wednesday. Action, Anzac Day action, big clash. Should be over 75,000 people at the MCG to witness Essendon up against Collingwood. West Coast, we've already spoken about this game against Richmond on Friday night. Important game for West Coast. Good to see exactly how the Richmond side are travelling to, for them to get the credit that they are looking for in this competition. They'll need to win this game. Carlton need to get back on the winners list. St Kilda need a victory. And the Brisbane Lions, Freo, Geelong, Port and Melbourne, Sydney. That should be a great clash at the MCG on Sunday too. There's a lot of good football in round 5.
It's a great round.
We've run out of time again. Thank you to you, Rowan Connolly. Thank you to you, Patrick Smith, and to you, Stan Els. We'll see you all again next week. And thank you to you too for joining us.